Okay. This is super awesome, amazing, wonderful, on the edge of ecstatic. I'm welcoming a holy and good and wonderful friend, Zach Fredman, Rabbi. The image I have of us meeting is going swimming in a Mayan outside of Jerusalem. One of the first times that we ever met together. You're a good and holy friend whose friendship I really appreciate. And today we're just having a little reflection on the Parsha, on Parshat Yitro. I just want to welcome you as a friend and a rabbi and a teacher and a colleague. Just tell us 2 words on how you're doing and who you are, and then we're going to get into a little bit of this limud for the next few minutes.
It's a big joy to get to see your face and get to learn Torah with you. I'm doing good. I'm in the undisclosed location of Brooklyn, New York. We're existing so much online these days, so I'm kind of between gigs, but I'm throwing up a lot of Torah on Instagram and Facebook, and I hold Shabbat every week on Friday night on Zoom. Thanks for having me, Oliver.
Yeah, it's likewise beautiful to see your face. One of the things that I've been afforded in these times is to connect with good and amazing friends online, as we're doing now. The parsha this week is Yitro, and one of the things that we were speaking about before we pressed the record button is this interface between outsider and insider. The parsha is about Moses' at the beginning of the parsha is about Moses' father-in-law, and Moshe goes out to meet his father-in-law, and his father-in-law brings in his wife and his 2 children, Gershon and Eliezer. And the next scene that happens is this scene of Yitro giving advice to Moshe on how the people, on how the fledgling nation should be run in the post-Exodus era. And it's a fascinating moment, and in some way or other just starts to touch at the sides of how we as a people relate to other tribes, other aspects of ancient Israelite tribal culture, other aspects of traditions and religious traditions inside in those generations and beyond. One of the key aspects of Yitro is there's no like conversion moment, but he comes and he offers sacrifice to the God of Yud Hey Vav Hey and recognizes, it's actually one of the first retellings of the Exodus story. Moshe says, these are all the miracles that happened inside Egypt, and as we were taken out of Egypt to Yitro, and Yitro says, whoa, that's cool, I'm going to worship your God now. And it's just kind of in that kind of microcosm moment when we get to study Parsha, it's that that look into how our interface with other traditions and cultures might be or should ideally be. And you're somebody who in some way or other also embodies this in some of the ways that you teach and some of the ways that you interact and interface with lots of different traditions around you. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your response and how you take this Parsha in this beautiful week.
I've always, something about, from a young age, I was always interested in spirituality, and it was, I don't know, maybe a result of how I grew up. I grew up a little bit Orthodox, but then we hopped around. We did Orthodox, conservative, Reform. It was very fluid. And when I got to college, I studied all the religions, but whenever I was studying, it was never as if I was studying something external. If what I was learning in the Quran or the New Testament or any of the Eastern, scriptures, if it was relevant to the light of my spiritual life at the moment, it came in as much as it, reading the Torah. And something about that kind of, what you labeled the conversation, being able to learn from all people, from all sources. So something about it has to do with the opening here of of not kind of stacking the books separately of this is the spiritual texts I can learn from, and these are the ones that I, shouldn't be learning from. Once you kind of say, okay, from both piles, a beautiful imagery or symbolism or idea comes from another source. What the heck if it's going to transmute my light in an interesting way?
So one of the pieces of Torah that you mentioned before, connecting the Kedushat Levi and the Zohar, was this aspect of the difference between two words, which perhaps translated mean the same thing, which is the kolot, the voices, and the dibur, which is the spoken word. And you said something quite beautiful about this aspect of the kolot that are seen by the children of Israel at Mount Sinai represents the capacity of the human spirit to see inside the language of religious tradition and see its deeper essence from within. And perhaps described there in the Torah that you offered me is an aspect of what it is to be human, searching for the divine, which is common across all religions. And at the moment at which we see into the text, into the tradition, you were talking before about stories as well, into the story of different cultures and traditions, that's where God is, not in one particular place, not in one particular book, but in the understood essence at the center of each of those aspects of tradition.
When I talk about this with, now we've got like a lot of the bar mitzvah kids, 12 or 13 are really kind of questioning their own theology. And sometimes I'll put this question to them. I say, is God Jewish? Is God Christian? Is God Muslim? God, to me, if you said, I think God is Jewish, that would make God much smaller than I want my theology to be very quickly. And so if God is not any of those things, then of course God would love to hear the prayers made in all the different languages and through all the different imageries and traditions. This Torah from the Kedushat Levi of Kol and Dibor, Dibor being the poetry of the actual words spoken, the choice of the words and what goes out, but Kol, the voice, being the inside, what's inside of the words that are chosen. So when you speak to me, I'm hearing the words you're choosing, but I'm also hearing Oliver's voice and soul inhabiting each of those words. And to me, it's like the soul inside of the body. It's like the soul of the words that's giving them the life force. And so you have these interesting smichut parshiot of Moses, Yitro being able to hear, Moses being able to hear Yitro, and then the people being able to hear God. And so these different mechanisms for how we're hearing something that's outside of us, whether that's a person from another tradition or what it means to hear from God, who is inside and outside of us. So to me, this kind of the differences in dibur, in speech, and how the different religious traditions put God's words into specific word and imagery, fine. All the differences are of dibur. But kol, the thing inside all of those words, that's the same essence. And so I think that's the point you're making, that when you can let the particulars, which are far more concerned, which are far more surface-like, when you can let those go a little bit, let them release and hear the kol inside of those words, not let words like, what bothers me, what I mentioned is that it's like, oh, if we've got certain kind of words that guard our borders, languages that guards our borders. So Jesus is like a certain people, you see, if it's from the New Testament, I can't learn from there, but that's the surface. What's the Torah inside of the New Testament? There's some beautiful parables and teachings that when I read when I was 20 years old, reading the parables of Jesus in college and understanding that that Jesus had gone to the Beis Midrash and learned the same parables that I was learning and knew them incredibly, and then created his own mashalim, parables. Those parables are so original, and at the same time, they're rooted in the same parables that we're reading in Breshit and Shemot Rabbah. So the exchanges that are happening at the borders are really intriguing also.
So we have to wrap it up in terms of this offering today. I guess I'm going to give you the last word, and the last word, I want to understand also how you understand the borders and the fluidity of the borders that you're representing also then creates a Jewish community which is more welcoming. Because one of the things that we're struggling with right now in our Jewish community is making sure that community actually embraces everybody who is Jewish and everybody who is searching for Jewish inspiration and Jewish guidance and in need of it today. And our communities haven't always been able to do that. So how this essence, this Torah that you're teaching might impact on that. And then also just to say peace, and to say how somebody might find more of your Torah and track you down if they want to ask another question.
I think your question here pertains to kind of self-awareness, the degree to which you can meet a person at the door of your place of worship and spirit and welcome them in fully has to do with how your heart settles. So if you live a very enclosed lifestyle and somebody who's not normally in your small circle comes to be with you, the anxiety that you feel around that person, if you haven't addressed that and come to be whole here, they're going to feel that and feel unwelcome. So the beginning work of creating, or an aspect of the work, the other aspect is externals, and creating all the systems and places that, and language and learning all the things that make people who are different than you feel welcome. But to me, the really hard work is confronting here and saying, oh, wow, my life is really circumscribed. And if I want to create an open environment, I have to decircumcise my circumscribed boundaries. I wish we could go on for a long time. I think this is a big moment for Judaism in terms of realizing that the world is safe. I don't think we're going back to Holocaust ever again, as scary as hate is in the world. And so can Judaism open up, become more porous, and to do that necessitates the kind of self-investigation that I've described. You can find me at zacharyfredman.com. I'm on Facebook. The band that I play a lot of music with is called the Epichorus. We've got a great YouTube channel that you can check out, or I also happen to own the domain theepichorus.com, EPICHORUS. I love you, Rabbi Oliver Spike Joseph.
It's beautiful to learn a little bit of Torah with you. This is not the last time that we're going to do gigs together, and I also love you very much, Zach Fredman, rabbi, friend. Peace.